They opened a giant pink granite door buried in Egypt, and what they found behind it could rewrite everything we thought we knew about pharaohs. Tap the like button before we vanish deeper into the sands. This story is one of Egypt's best-kept secrets. It all began with an ordinary day at Egypt's Saqqara necropolis, an area known for royal burials stretching back over 4,500 years. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ancient landscape, where the stepped pyramid of Djoser dominated the horizon like a stone giant. Archaeologists had no idea what was coming. Saqqara had already revealed dozens of important tombs in the past century, mastabas of nobles, burial chambers of priests, and countless artifacts that filled museum collections worldwide. But this day would be different. Something unusual caught the attention of a research team working in the shadow of the Old Kingdom monuments. The discovery began with ground-penetrating radar scans that revealed an anomaly deep beneath the surface. Initial excavations uncovered what appeared to be a massive pink granite structure sealed deep underground, completely untouched by looters or time. The team worked methodically, brushing away millennia of accumulated sand and debris with the patience that defines archaeological work. But as the structure emerged, their excitement grew. Nobody expected a door this large, this mysterious or this heavy. 14 feet high, about as tall as a giraffe, and wide enough to drive a car through, the pink granite door dwarfed anything previously found in the necropolis. It was more than a tomb marker. It was something else entirely, a statement of power and permanence that spoke across the centuries. The sheer size suggested this wasn't just any burial but something reserved for someone of extraordinary importance. Now in ancient Egypt, false doors were common architectural elements in tombs and temples. They were symbolic, meant for spirits to pass between the living world and the afterlife. Most were small decorative features made of limestone, the standard building material of the Old Kingdom. They typically stood about human height and were carved with intricate hieroglyphs and scenes of the deceased receiving offerings from family members. But this one, it was a beast made of pink granite, a material so rare and difficult to transport that it usually took weeks to haul from faraway quarries in Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. The logistics alone were staggering. Teams of workers would have spent months cutting the stone, loading it onto barges, and floating it down the Nile during flood season when the river was high enough for heavy transport. The cost in manpower, time and resources would have been enormous, equivalent to building a small pyramid. This wasn't just symbolic. This door was hiding something significant, something that demanded the most prestigious materials available to ancient Egyptian craftsmen. The choice of pink granite wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate statement of wealth, power, and divine connection. As experts brushed away centuries of sand and stone with soft brushes and dental tools, working with the precision of surgeons, the pink granite surface revealed deep engravings, hieroglyphs that told of a man named Prince Tutankhamun, or as researchers now call him, Prince Useref. The inscriptions were masterfully carved, each symbol cut deep into the hard stone with tools that would have taken skilled craftsmen weeks to complete. His name wasn't familiar to Egyptologists. He wasn't listed on any official family tree, no record appeared in the comprehensive king lists that ancient scribes maintained, and no mention of him existed in the thousands of papyrus documents that had survived from the Old Kingdom. Yet here was a door that spoke of massive wealth, honor and status. The hieroglyphs proclaimed him as a hereditary prince, a royal scribe, and bearer of numerous other titles that indicated proximity to the pharaoh himself. So how had someone so apparently important vanished so completely from the historical record? The team had a decision to make. The pink granite door wasn't supposed to open. It was symbolic, a spiritual gateway for the soul of the deceased to travel between worlds. Archaeological protocol typically called for documenting such doors in place, preserving them as they were found. But behind it they felt something strange, a gap in the stonework that suggested an actual chamber lay beyond. The decision to proceed was not made lightly. Senior archaeologists consulted with Egyptian authorities, preservation experts, and tomb specialists. After extensive discussion and planning, they decided to carefully examine the structure more closely. As they worked, they discovered that the door was actually a facade. Behind the granite was a sealed chamber that had remained untouched for over 4,000 years. So they pushed, using hydraulic jacks and careful leverage to avoid damaging the precious stone. As the dust cleared and their flashlights pierced the darkness, they didn't just find a tomb, they found a world sealed for millennia. Inside, the air was heavy and still, as if it hadn't been touched by time. The atmosphere was so dry that organic materials had mummified naturally, creating a preservation environment that rivaled the best modern museums. At first, the chamber looked empty, just shadows and dust motes dancing in the beam of their lights. But then they saw a long room filled with statues, painted walls showing scenes of daily life in the afterworld, broken pottery that had once held precious oils and perfumes, and even food offerings, all perfectly preserved. The colors on the walls were as vibrant as the day they were painted, showing scenes of the prince receiving offerings, hunting in the afterlife, and participating in religious ceremonies. The centerpiece, a red granite offering table covered in ancient inscriptions. It listed foods for the afterlife in meticulous detail: bread, meat, wine, honey, figs, and other delicacies. The inscriptions weren't just decorative, they were magical spells designed to ensure the prince would never hunger in the afterlife. Not just to honor the dead, but because the Egyptians believed spirits could actually consume the essence of this food. The truth, it was the priests and temple workers who feasted on the physical offerings during religious ceremonies, but in writing it was all meant for the prince. The hieroglyphs surrounding the offering table gave more details about the enigmatic prince. Prince User-Refra had an endless list of titles: hereditary prince, judge, priest, minister, royal scribe, and overseer of the royal world. Each title represented real power and responsibility in the ancient Egyptian government. He was clearly a man of enormous influence, no doubt about it, but still, his name had been erased from history. Why? Had he died young before he could make his mark? Had he been betrayed by court politics? Was his family removed from power in some ancient coup? Here's where things got even stranger. Among the many artifacts, the team found statues of King Djoser, the pharaoh who built Egypt's very first pyramid and revolutionized royal burial practices, along with statues of his wife and 10 daughters. Each statue was masterfully carved, showing the artistic skill that made Old Kingdom sculpture legendary. But Djoser had lived hundreds of years before User-Refra. What were his statues doing in another man's tomb? This mystery would spark a whole new wave of questions and theory. Experts now believe those statues were moved during the 26th dynasty, thousands of years after Djoser and User-Refra had both died. This was during the Sai'te period, when Egypt was experiencing a renaissance of interest in its ancient past. Possibly the statues were moved to protect them from destruction during periods of political upheaval, maybe even to honor them again in a new religious context. It turns out, the tomb may have been used more than once. It wasn't just a grave, it was a museum, a storage vault, or even a holy site for centuries of Egyptians. In fact, this wasn't uncommon in ancient Egypt. Egyptians had a deep respect for their ancestors that bordered on reverence. Even ancient people reused sacred spaces to keep history alive, much like how we preserve historical sites today. The practice of pious restoration was common. Later rulers would renovate ancient monuments and tombs to show their respect for the past and legitimize their own rule. And this tomb was definitely reused. One black granite statue found inside had been placed there during the 26th dynasty, nearly 2,000 years after the original burial. It stood tall in the center of the room, powerful and commanding, its polished surface reflecting the archaeologists' lights like a mirror. Its design honored Osiris, god of the underworld, meaning this tomb wasn't just a final resting place. It became a ritual site, one that kept being visited, adapted and reimagined through different generations. But that wasn't the only thing hidden inside this underground sanctuary. On the tomb's eastern side, archaeologists found another pink granite entrance. This one was smaller but equally impressive, its inscriptions linking it to King Neferkara, another important 5th dynasty ruler who had built his own pyramid complex nearby. The connection suggested this tomb was part of a larger religious or political network that historians were only beginning to understand. And beside this door sat something never seen before in Saqqara, a row of 13 granite statues all sitting on a high-backed stone bench. Each statue had a different pose, different clothing, different expressions frozen in stone. Some had upright heads with carefully carved features, others were missing theirs entirely, some were larger than the rest, suggesting different levels of importance. One statue made of black granite had even fallen upside down, creating an eerie scene that seemed to tell a story of disruption and change. They looked like people frozen in time, lined up at the gate of the afterlife, waiting for some eternal judgment or ceremony that would never come. Experts believe this arrangement showed a strict social order that reflected the hierarchical nature of ancient Egyptian society. The statues with complete heads were probably wives or high-status women, their hairstyles and clothing indicating their noble rank. The headless ones may have represented unfinished statues, work interrupted by the prince's death, or ones vandalized in later years during periods of religious or political upheaval. The entire setup told a quiet story, one of power, hierarchy, and maybe even punishment. Each statue was positioned with purpose, creating a scene that would have been immediately understood by ancient Egyptians familiar with afterlife beliefs and social customs. Still, the biggest mystery remained. Who really was Prince Userkaf? Some believe he was the son of King Userkaf, the man who founded Egypt's 5th dynasty and sparked a huge shift in religious practice. Userkaf wanted to replace older gods with a new focus on the sun god Ra, building the very first sun temple and beginning a trend that would spread through the entire dynasty. But religious reform can create enemies, especially among the powerful priesthood that had served the old gods for generations. Some scholars think Userkaf may have been caught in that storm of change. Maybe he supported the old gods and opposed his father's reform. Maybe he was betrayed by court politics and removed from succession. Maybe he was eliminated quietly, buried with respect but forgotten by the living to prevent his supporters from rallying around his memory. That would explain why his name disappeared from public records, a deliberate act of historical erasure called damnatio memoriae by the Romans, but practiced by Egyptians long before. But his tomb, so grand, so detailed, says something different. It says someone loved him, someone wanted him remembered, someone with enough power to move granite blocks and fill chambers with treasure. Inside the tomb, they also found pottery shards that told stories of daily life, amulets for protection inscribed with magical spells, and painted scenes on the walls that had retained their colors for millennia. Some of the engravings looked older, some newer, confirming the tomb had changed over time, layers of history written in stone and paint. But through all these layers of history, one thing stayed the same. This tomb was built to last. It was made of granite, decorated with care, and hidden behind doors that no one expected to open. The entire discovery shocked the archaeological world and made headlines in scientific journals worldwide. This wasn't just another tomb, it was a time capsule showing how Egypt changed across centuries. It proved how earlier dynasties were remembered, revered, and even physically moved around by later rulers. It gave clues about religious shifts, royal rivalries, and how ancient Egyptians cared for their dead long after burial. And more importantly, it reminded everyone that so much of Egypt's history is still buried, still waiting for the right moment and the right team to bring it back to life. Even today, we still don't know everything. Why were some statues placed upside down? Were they meant to be forgotten? Was this tomb looted and then restructured? Was Prince Userkaf meant to rule but stopped before he could? Each object adds more questions than answers, creating a puzzle that may take decades to solve. But that's what makes this discovery so powerful. It's a reminder that Egypt's story is far from finished. Every layer of sand might be hiding another name, another prince, another piece of the puzzle we've missed. And as modern technology improves from ground-penetrating radar to 3D scans, archaeologists believe many more tombs like this may still be under our feet. And here's another twist.
The entire area around the pink granite door is now under further excavation. New tunnels have been found nearby, their entrances sealed with the same careful precision that protected the prince's tomb. Some may lead to family members of the prince, wives or children who shared his fate. Others might connect to hidden chambers once thought lost. Storage rooms filled with treasures or libraries of papyrus scrolls that could rewrite our understanding of the 5th dynasty. It's possible this one tomb is actually part of a larger interconnected burial complex, something historians never expected to find in this part of Saqqara. History isn't gone, it's just waiting to be found. Behind every stone and under every grain of sand, there's a story buried deep. And sometimes the biggest discoveries come not from treasure, but from the silence that speaks through forgotten names and sealed doors. The pink granite door that started it all now stands as a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and the endless mysteries that ancient Egypt continues to reveal. Prince Userefra may have been forgotten by history, but his story lives on, a reminder that even the most powerful attempts to erase the past cannot silence the stones that remember. If this story amazed you, imagine what's still hidden out there, waiting for the next curious soul to brush away the sand and peer into the darkness. Stay curious, stay digging. Want more like this? Then like, share and hit that bell, because our next discovery might just change everything you think you know about ancient history.